but it seemed huge to me. Quickly, I twisted my skirt around to the front and with my ballpoint pen, colored in the spot. And that was the official beginning of my career as an artist, and the beginning of my staining many, many things. Upholstered Louis XIV chairs at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in London, and a myriad of mattresses around the world, not to mention most of my clothes. And even though my period was regular almost to the day, each month for about 40 years, it always came as a surprise. I was never prepared. And with about 9 pregnancies, when the doctor asked, "And when was your last period?" I never ever knew. So that's the story, and I think it's great. So this girl gets her period, and she sees the spot on her skirt, and instead of freaking out, because there are so many stories where girls just freak out, start to cry, give up, think this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to them, she colors it in, and I sort of always picture it as her turning it into a flower, and who knows, maybe she colored it in and then twisted her skirt and made a new stain and then colored that one in, and I can just picture the skirt that has like a ring around it. So anyways, that's a story about school that I think shows that you can be in control. Cool. So someone just asked, should I tell my dad? And I think this is a really important question, and definitely depends on the family. I think it's really important for both parents to know that you've gotten a period, and it all depends on whether or not you'd rather someone else tell your dad or whether you'd rather tell your dad. At some point your dad is going to know, and it just depends on how you would rather him find out. And I think it generally makes things run a little smoother when your dad knows. If you have mood swings or if you need to go to the pharmacy for some reason, I think he'll be much more sympathetic if he understands why. Totally. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend telling your dad. I'm sure he would be really proud. Right, so as someone just said, if you need pads, you need to tell your parents so that they know. So that's just a really practical reason to tell your parents, and I totally agree. Also, it's nice to have them know that you're an adult if you want to be treated like one. For sure. So someone just asked where you can buy My Little Red Book, and you can buy it online at Amazon. You can buy it in almost every bookstore, in Barnes & Nobles and Borders. Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. I think I like to say that it's in a bookstore near every girl. So yeah, you can find it in a lot of places. And the other thing that's cool is if you want to just check out a bunch of period stories, I have a Story of the Month contest online. And every month I post one story, so there are a few stories online right now that you can read and just check out and get a feel for and see how some other women have reacted to their first period stories from around the ages. Someone else just asked whether or not they should use pads. And that's a question that I think every girl faces. And I think most people, I know, I can really only speak for myself and the people that I know, and I think most people end up doing a balance of pads and tampons. Obviously, there are times when tampons are way more practical, like when you're swimming and exercising, but if you're having a lighter flow, I think a lot of girls like to use pads. So it's all about what you're comfortable with. And every girl definitely feels differently about this. But yeah, there are pros and cons of each, and if you go on the Being Girl website, you can find out more technical information for sure. So someone just asked a really interesting question. So this girl here doesn't have any sisters, and her mom doesn't have her period anymore. So it will be strange when she gets hers. Well, she's asking whether or not it will be strange, and what should she do to feel more independent. And this is a situation that a lot of girls are in with older mothers and that have no siblings. So this is an interesting question, and you're definitely not alone. I think that although your mom may not be having her period anymore, she definitely remembers what it was like and will be incredibly sympathetic to you and supportive. And I bet you'll be surprised. So I think what a lot of girls end up doing is not telling their mom or their sister and using their supplies so as to avoid telling them, because you can get away with not telling them. But you have a little harder job because you will have to tell your mom to buy supplies unless you want to do it alone. But actually, I think that that's a cool thing, that you'll tell her. It will definitely bring you guys closer, and you just sort of get it over with. So in the end, I think you will be independent, if not more independent than most girls, for sure. Someone else just asked how you deal with cramps. And it seems like there are a million different ways to deal with them. If you go on Being Girl and ask Iris, she will give you medical answers, but I can say from period stories that I've heard, there are traditions of eating like avocados and cream and not eating ginger and all of these strange practices. But for my own personal life, I can just say taking an Advil is the easiest and simplest solution. A lot of girls use heating pads. I personally don't use them. And what one girl just said, drinking a lot of water always helps, no matter what the problem is that isn't just cramps. So yeah, that's definitely what I would recommend. Yeah, for sure. And also, I think cramps are a time where you can sort of give yourself a break and let yourself take it easy for a little. And that's another thing to do. Don't push yourself if you don't have to. Cool. So, I think I'll read you guys another story. And this one is also from a Being Girl, which I think is cool, because they're all your peers. And this happens at lunch. It seems that, like, I don't know where you guys think periods happen the most, but it seems like it's always PE or lunch, and the person is always either, like, wearing a bathing suit or wearing white. And I don't know how that happens. If you guys have any theories, I would be really interested in hearing them. Cool. So, this is one of those lunch stories, and it happened in Iowa. I was eating lunch at school, and I was laughing with my best friends, and I was having fun. My best friend Jake was sitting across from me, and we had red juice at school for lunch. Can any of you guys guess where this is going? Jake dropped his fork on the floor, so he went under the table to get it. He looked at me and told me that I had spilled red juice on my shorts. I was wearing white shorts that day. I told him that the color of the juice would have been way brighter than that, and right then, it hit me. I had just gotten my period. Jake then asked me what it was, and I told him that I had to go to the bathroom, and then the next day he told me he knew why I had to go to the bathroom. And that was the most horrifying day of my life. So, that's the story. And although she says that it is the most horrifying, and the lights keep going up. Although she says that it is the most horrifying day of her life, I think it's actually a pretty cute story, and the guy sounds pretty sympathetic. But I also just like the coincidence of the red juice. And, yeah, so I don't know if you guys have any stories that are sort of like that. Cool. Do you guys have any? Okay, what's my funniest story? That's a great question. So someone just asked what the funniest story that I have heard is. Well, I really like this story written by Meg Cabot, who thinks that, do you guys know who Meg Cabot is? She's the author of the Princess Diaries series. Did you guys ever see that movie? Yeah, so anyways, she's really funny, and her story is something along the lines of, she read this book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and thought that because she never took like a period class in school or a puberty class, that women were still wearing these belted pads. Do you guys know what that is? Like, do you know what people used before tampons and pads were invented? So what women used were these pieces of cloth that they would pin to like an elastic belt, sort of like a giant diaper. It's like this